Ever since the superhero genre has existed, there have been a litany of superhero parodies, satires, and people deconstructing the genre. But one of my favorites is Don Simpson's Megaton Man. And finally, this week, through Fantagraphics Underground with a little help from Zoop, we get the complete Megaton Man Universe in this thick tome of an omnibus, and it collects all of the 1980s stories done by Don Simpson. I'm going to flip the camera around and put this under the microscope. You're going to want to take a look at this because this is some of the most fun and inspiring comics that you'll ever read. Stay tuned and watch this video until the end. And we're back. My name is Taylor. This is Taylor Talks Comics. Thank you for joining me. Please give the video a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts on Megaton Man or your favorite superhero parody comics. I'd love to talk to you guys down in the comments. And subscribe if you haven't already. I am about to embark on 31 days of horror comics or horror comics related topics all throughout October. If you're into horror comics, then you're going to want to check that out. And let's get to it. So first off, thank you to Tucker Stone and Fantagraphics for sending me out this review copy. This is the paperback version. They also have released a hardcover version that was exclusive through Zoop, but Fantagraphics does have some copies of that on their website of the hardcover, probably limited quantities if you're wanting the hardcover version. I know some other retailers have got the hardcover as well online because there was a retailer campaign option throughout the Zoop campaign. So this is a massive tome. I just want to do this for dramatic effect. Like, this is a thick book, and they used really great paper stock on the inside, so it made it a really heavy book. But just show you off the size of this, because I'm sure people are curious. This is your standard single issue comic book. So you can see that it's taller than that and wider than a single issue comic book. If you're familiar with the Marvel or DC omnibus format, it is the same height as a Marvel or DC omnibus, but also wider than it on this side, as you can tell. But as far as like the spine, let me try to do this in a good way here. The spine here, you can see it's the same height of it. I'm assuming the hardcover version, just because the backing board will be slightly taller than this as well. But it's got this great wraparound cover with new artwork from Don Simpson. I'm going to try to do this gently to show off. I know Don Simpson on his social media has shown off the entire piece without the trade dress on it, so you can see it, but it's truly just Don Simpson drawing all the characters from the Megaton Man universe that you know and love. It's a great spine on here. It says Volume 1, the 1980s, with the FU, aka the Fantagraphics Underground logo. And then here's the back of it. Now, one thing I want to show you off is how this piece of this book that is amazing that I wish more publishers would do. And that is showing future volumes of this series and their content. So if you go all the way to the back page here and read it, it tells you exactly what will be in Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, and other work by Don Simpson. So you can anticipate and already know what's going to come out in Volume 2, 3, and 4. So when you buy this, you can feel confident that there will be future volumes and you will know what will come out in them. I wish more publishers would do that, because a lot of times it's like you buy Volume 1 of a new reprint series and you're left wondering, well, is there even going to be a Volume 2 or 3 or 4? Are they even going to complete the series? It seems like Don Simpson is dedicated to do that, and I love that. So opening title page here, great splash piece right here by Don Simpson, which seems to be scanned from the original art, just judging by the fidelity of the inks and things. But I just love that piece. The designer on this was Doug Erb, with Don Simpson on doing everything else, compiling it and whatnot. Here's the table of contents. Great table of contents with dates and everything, which again I love to see in a reprint series of comics. We have an introduction by Bill Morrison with a foreword by Chris Ecker, and then we have each chapter is an issue. So it collects Megaton Man issues 1 through 10, and then the Return of Megaton Man 1 and 2, and the 1, 2, and 3, and then Megaton Man meets the uncategorizable X-Thems #1, Yarn Man #1, Shell Shock, and Tyranno Man #1, and then a piece that featured in Turtle Soup Volume 2, #2. With the additional Megatonnage, Dirty Dishes in the Kitchen Sink, Pinup Gallery, and From the Bunker. So the introduction by Bill Morrison is awesome. If you've ever read Simpsons comics ever throughout the years, you would recognize Bill Morrison's artwork. I love that he did a Megaton Man piece here for the introduction. Just talking about how he met Don Simpson and how they go way back in the terms of trying to break into comics and stuff. Really, really great introduction. This one's by Chris Ecker here, and he has cool little art pieces as well. And then we get right into it. So, who is Megaton Man and what is this great character? Don Simpson created this as like a one-off, one-shot parody comic that he was to do. And it turned out, because Don Simpson had aspirations to do serious science fiction comics. He says all of this in the back matter of the book, which I'll get to, because there's a lot of great back matter in this book as well. It's not just, let's reprint all the issues and then be done with it. There's a lot of love and care put into this collection. And all the pinups and things, we're going to get to all that, but there's so many cool little pieces in here that make this truly one of the best reprint collections I've come across in a long time. But back to what I was saying. So the first issue was done to be a one-shot, one-off parody issue. You see Megaton Man, he has origins. I can't remember if is it origin told in the second issue? I think it is. But he encounters like this Fantastic Four type parody team where instead of the Thing, it's Yarn Man and the Incredible See-Through Girl and what's the Reed Richards character's name? I'm forgetting. I'm drawing. Oh, Human Meltdown is the Human Torch. What's Reed Richards' name? I forget. I think his Liquid Man is his name. I can't remember. But there's so many characters throughout here. It's hard to keep them. I'm just terrible with character names. But anyways, I digress. So then here we have On Sale Now, Ask For It By Name. And it's a parody of the Fantastic Four #1 cover. But the monster that's coming out of the ground is actually eating the lettering of the comic book issue. And then here's part 2. So it's kind of broken down like classic Jack Kirby style of comics where it's broken into parts. And I love these great splash pages too that Don Simpson would do. That just like mimic the Bronze Age comic kind of storytelling here. But there's also this Fantastic Four parody, but there's also Megaton Man as a journalist working at the Manhattan Project instead of the Daily Planet. And there's like this Lois Lane character that is, and like they play with the idea of like who knows his true identity and things, and it's done for complete satire and it's hilarious. There's also this Doonesbury thing going on here. I'm assuming Don Simpson is a big Doonesbury fan, or at least was, because he's constantly riffing on Doonesbury. And that's the thing with satire and parody anyways, is that like you have to have a love or appreciation for the thing that you're making fun of to truly make a great satire or parody of the thing. I think that's the only way it ever works, and Don Simpson definitely has that. Oh, here's the President of the United States too. He's like an Orson Welles kind of character. Oh, they do tell his origin. Okay, so in the first issue, you get his origin, and it's the origin of Megaton Man, and you can see it just riffs on every single superhero origin you could think of. He was a survivor of a dying planet, then he hit cataclysmic rays, and then he was raised by a tribe of intelligent kangaroos like Tarzan. Then he was bitten by a radioactive frog, and then he suddenly is caught in the grips of a space-time continuum, and then he was drowned or quickly downed the top secret premium super soldier syrup. So it's just a complete riff on all of those, and that's kind of like this bastardized kind of version of all these superheroes that created Megaton Man. And I love like the design of everything too. Like this is like a ripped out kind of like comic strip showing Megaton Man, but then you have the FM trombone Doomsbury down here as well. It's also kind of riffing on the comic. It's not just there for looks. So it's just like Don Simpson wearing all of his influences on his sleeves. I do want to point out too, like all the great lettering throughout here. Don Simpson is an incredible letterer as well. And you'll see that throughout here. But he's just wearing all his influences on his sleeves and just like riffing on all these different things. So here's a pinup too, which I don't think that was in the comic book issue. I think he just throws these pinups in to split off the issues where you get to like chapter 2, Megaton Man #2. This is a pinup for Kitchen Sink. That's where Megaton Man originally debuted. And I love that they keep the indicia in here too, because there's some funny jokes throughout the indicia that Don Simpson would throw in there that makes it worth reading for sure. But so he's just riffing on everything to do with superheroes. It's such a fun comic, and he talks about in the back how he does this like in an improvisational way, where it's just kind of like he's doing like a page at a time or an issue at a time, and just seeing what would happen next, asking himself what would happen next. And here's some more great of that. All that lettering on this page right here is just amazing. There's an example of Don Simpson's lettering that I want to show you. But the thing about it is, it's not just improvisational comics where Yes, they're all the issues are like complete one and done stories, but there is a progression of the characters and the stories going on from issue to issue, and the way that Don Simpson keeps that fidelity with the characters and the continuity is that if something happened, then it really did happen, and when he moves on, is like, what do we do next from that? So if a character gets pregnant and has a baby, perhaps, then it's not just like the next issue the baby's gone and disappears. It's no, what would we do from here going forward? And it becomes this thing where it started off as this joke. It started off as this parody, satire, but you could tell that even just reading this, even without hearing any of the commentary from Don Simpson, that he fell in love with these characters and truly wanted to show them and progress with them and kind of connect with them on a way as a creator, as a writer. And it gets to the point where the superhero hijinks are kind of like the funny satire parts, but then like when you get to the bits where there's like two humans talking, let me see here. This is a funny Galactus parody. It's just, Lord, I am Hungary. And he's got forks over there. Like just such a funny comic all throughout. There's so many like little jokes in here. But yeah, the human moments, let me see if I can find one. Or where you can see that he like truly falls in love with these characters. I guess this is kind of one, but you get the wall here, which is the Spider-Man parody. But those moments, I feel like, are when he's kind of taking it seriously and wanting to see, it's almost like his slice of life, Love and Rockets type story there. There's still some funny bits in there, but it's like these great human moments as well. Here's a great piece that's like homaging Jim Steranko. And that's the thing too, again, wearing all his influences on his sleeves are things that he enjoyed in comics, but also the creators that he enjoyed as well. And here's some of those human moments I'm talking about here. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Zot in a way, because Zot started off as like this kind of fun-filled superhero comic by Scott McCloud. But then by the end of the run, when he got to the black and white portion of that, which I have a video on my channel showing off Zot. I love that comic as well. Scott McCloud started to get like almost more serious with the characters. And I don't mean serious like as in boring or like not fun anymore, but like in the fact that he was wanting to develop them to be more than just two-dimensional characters and wanted to flesh them out more. You do get some letters pages in here, which is fun to see. There's even some creators in here, like Mike Barron is a writer on this one, that write into him in the Megatropolis memorandum. And then here's some merchandise, which I think, yeah, Don Simpson says in the back that these are still on sale on the Kitchen Sink website. These buttons, which I need to get one of these. I would love to have the one, "Are you kidding? I eat X-Men for breakfast" button. That'd be cool one to have on my backpack. But yeah, just such fun stories. And like, as the characters progress and develop, they're just worked in so well. Another thing I want to talk about is his artwork. So Don Simpson is an incredible artist. And you see that progression throughout here as well, which is one of my favorite things about reprint collections like this, is that you're seeing the beginning of Don Simpson's comic book career with issue number 1. And all the way throughout it, you see whole decades of work of Don Simpson's artwork throughout this big tome. It's like 600 plus pages. And you can see him working through all his different styles and techniques that he wants to until it becomes the fully polished version of Don Simpson that we know and love now. And I love that. I love to see how he goes through that, because early on you see a lot of like the panels just being filled with like chicken fat, like Will Elder inspired chicken fat and things. And then by the end of it, you get to that, oh, I just bent that page. You get to the more clean line that we know Don Simpson, know and love from all his artwork, you know, today or any recent comics he's come out with. And, but still with the same brushing technique, the feathering that he does. Just such great work. But another thing I want to point out is the anatomy, because I know that's a big talking point with Megaton Man, since he's like this over puffed up, over buff superhero. But and it's a topic that I'm passionate about, because I feel like people get this wrong all the time when they're talking about comic book anatomy, especially when they're referring to like a Rob Liefeld or any of the 90s Image guys versus the guys that do perfect anatomy with their characters like the Stuart Eminems or whoever. And one thing I want to point out, though, with all of that conversation is that cartooning is a thing. Pure cartooning. And that's what Don Simpson's doing throughout this. And the thing that the reason why it works for Don Simpson to over bloat the anatomy on these things is that there's still a scale involved with his anatomy. So Megaton Man obviously is like this overly buff character that you will never see a human being that looks like this, right? But because there is still a scale involved, you don't see Megaton Man with like, unless it's a story reason, with like his arms shorter in one panel and then longer in another panel. You don't see his neck disappear in one panel and then grow longer in another panel. Like, it's always to the same scale. And the human beings, same thing. Like, these human beings have like these elongated faces because that's the way that's his style, Don Simpson style. But that is, again, carried throughout in continuity and to scale. So that's what you do with pure cartooning, rather than some of these artists that will have this incongruent continuity of their anatomy throughout the story, unless they're pushing the anatomy for a story reason. I know there's some comics that I could point out that do that too. Is like in a big moment that they want to show the character look like they're over bloated in a big powerful moment to show maybe not what the character actually looks like, but what they're feeling. But that's a whole other topic for another day. But I just want to point that out because his drawing, Don Simpson's drawing, is incredible throughout this. Yeah, another thing I want to point out too is like the time period that these comics were written. They started in 1982 or 83. I can't remember. 83 is when the first chapter 0 comes out, and the first issue comes out in November 1984. So that's before Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns. So before the deconstructionist of superheroes and where that became like the popular thing to do. This is around the American flag era too, which is another comic I like to point out as being predating Watchmen and predating Dark Knight Returns, as having like kind of like genre bending and genre pushing kind of comic book ability. So this predates that. This is not like Don Simpson is riffing on. It's not like he sees all these other writers and artists going, okay, we're going to deconstruct superheroes. I'm going to push it the other way and go satire. It bleeds in a little bit of that as it bleeds over into 1986 where those comics came out. But it's just Don Simpson kind of innovating that in a way. And I think the pushing the anatomy thing, again, I think he did it better than any of the Image founding fathers as far as keeping things into a realistic scale, as I said before. But even that was like a thing that no artist was really doing in the mainstream superhero genre until the 90s with those artists. So he's kind of like pushing that as well. I love this too. This is a totally a Will Eisner spirit inspired panel there, again with great lettering by Don Simpson. Don Simpson brings up Ann Arbor a lot too. That's a frequent location in a lot of these stories. Don Simpson started his career in the Detroit area. I think he's in the Pittsburgh area now, but so a lot of Ann Arbor, Michigan things, which as a Penn State fan and Penn State graduate, we're rivals, but it's okay. I'll accept it for a good comic. Just kidding. But just fun stories. I think my favorite issue in here, though, if I'm going to point out, that would be the Megaton Man family was good too. Oh, here it is. Chapter 14, Megaton Man meets the uncategorizable X-Thems. So obviously the Uncanny X-Men is who they're riffing on here, or who Don Simpson's riffing on. And it starts off with this Golden Age era. Megaton Man by this time has taken over the mantle of Megaton Man, and it just it's so funny. Like, here's the Professor X character. You can see all the different superhero, or all the different mutants, I guess. I don't think he calls them mutants, with their different powers. And Megaton Man, the Golden Age one, who is this guy right here, not the main Megaton Man, is constantly having to be injected with power, these extra voltage from Professor Rex, to bloat himself back up, because he becomes like this overbloated, like out of shape man, and then he gets injected with power and becomes super buff, and then can go and fight crime. Here's like those human moments I was talking about. Here's the Trent Flug is the secret identity of Megaton Man, and this is him being depowered. You can see it looks like just a normal human being. He's no longer the buff Megaton Man that he used to be. So here's the Golden Age Megaton Man, and he keeps using his power, because his power only runs out eventually, and then he has to go get injected with more voltage from Professor Rex. But he keeps using it on women rather than battling supervillains, and keeps having to be injected with power, which Professor Rex warns him, like, that's going to be an issue, like, you can't keep doing that. So then he's going to sacrifice himself because he does something abhorrent and horrible, which I don't want to spoil. And then he goes into the Kirby dots, they even call it. But it's like this riff in the cosmic universe that's where he's cutting through to go to the multiverse of all the different comic book characters and the history of comic books are all on the other side of this, and they make jokes about how they can't show those characters because of copyright reasons and things. And then Trent Fluke is trying to become Megaton Man again naturally, not using a serum of any kind. So you get this cool normal size Megaton. This is what Megaton Man would look like if John Byrne drew him, perhaps. But this is just a weird dream he's having. And then he finds out the Yarn Man, who's like the Thing character, actually stole his serum to where he became overly buff. And then they have to go and save the universe. I don't want to spoil any more of that. But all the characters, again, progress, because this is the character that then becomes Miss Megaton Man. And she gets her powers from having relations with a character that took this super soldier syrup, or, you know, has that those genes within him. I'm trying not to spoil too much for you, but I love these splash pages too, with all these Easter eggs of characters in the background and things. This is just such a fun comic, and it's definitely binge worthy. I talk about this all the time of like certain comics you can only read a couple issues and then be satisfied and want to put it down and revisit it later. But some comics you want to binge the whole thing, and all 600 pages of this, I was just having a blast. Just seeing how these characters progress throughout the ages and see what new jokes and new parodies and satirical matter that Don Simpson's going to come up with next. And it's just such a fun book. Like, I don't know that any superhero, like the earliest superhero parody I can remember in history, it was like Super Duper Man by Willis Wood and Harvey Kurtzman in Mad Magazine. And there's been a litany of them since. But this might be the most fun because you actually see a progression of characters. Usually these satire kind of stories are one and done type deals where you don't see it, or they'll have multiple issues, but they'll just be riffing on different things here and there, and they won't have a connection at all. So let's get to the back matter. Don Simpson writes a lengthy afterword here, which I absolutely love. I'm a huge fan of comic book history, and I want to know everything I can about these things. I'm kind of disappointed when I get a reprint collection that doesn't have any back matter or any sort of context by the creator. So this is great. Like I said, this is very lengthy. Is that when it ends there? Okay, so it's 524 to 546. So 22 pages of Don Simpson showing off artwork and talking about all the different evolutions of his characters. Here's another story series that Don Simpson did called Border Worlds. Like I said earlier, Don Simpson aspired to be in like heavy metal magazine. Like that's like his goal, to do like serious science fiction stories. And Border Worlds was that. I've not read Border Worlds, but I want to now because I want to see Don Simpson doing a serious sci-fi story. I think with his talent for comedy and satire, I think that always, people that are usually really, really good at satire and comedy can do drama really well. So I'm going to see that. I know there's a collection of Border Worlds that came out years ago. I want to see if I can still find that somewhere in print, because I'd love to read that. But yeah, just a bunch of cool artwork and history. And it says to be continued at the end. So I'm assuming each volume will have a huge essay like that from Don Simpson. Again, I cannot wait to read the next volume just for that alone, but you know, also the comics. So here's some pop art gallery. Here's some pinups, unused covers and things. Again, just the lettering and then so good. Like the inking style too. This had to be an early one. Yeah, this is 84. The inking style, you can see that Don Simpson's still working out what kind of inking style he wants to use regularly in these earlier pinups. Here's a piece. So this has multiple artists on it. It has Jaime Hernandez, Will Eisner, Peter Pawlowski, Dennis Fujitaki, and this is Pawlowski twice. But New Age Comics cover. So they each took turns drawing their characters. And then more pinups. Just such a cool thing. Like, this is not just a collection of the comics. Like, it has like every piece of artwork and things that Don Simpson could find from this era, which I love. Now here's from the bunker. This is his archives of extensive developmental material and experiments and drafts. So these are some unused pages or strips that were reworked for different things, or maybe put into different future issues and things. Here's some original art, which is amazing to see his pencils and his roughs over the tops of these. And it even gives you reference to where these came from as well. Like these are pages 559 and 563 of this collection, which is great that they reference it by the book and not just saying like issue 5, page 4. because then you have to like go through and count and everything. But again, the roughs are just brilliant throughout here. I've never seen Don Simpson's originals before like this, or his roughs or anything. So all the process material that you want all throughout here. And then here's a, so this is 4 pages of the original plot breakdown of the supersized Megaton Man 11, following the Border Worlds hiatus. So you see a typed out plot synopsis, kind of script type deal. Here is a fully lettered Megatropolis memoranda. And then here's the variations, oddities, and notes from this volume are all throughout the back matter. And then acknowledgments from Don Simpson. And then, like I said, brilliant that he put this in here. I cannot wait for volume 2 with all this content in here, volume 3, volume 4, and so on. But this is a must-have book if you want fun superhero comics that, if you don't take your superhero comics too seriously, for sure this is something you want to have. Or maybe you should read this to then not take superhero comics so seriously, because they're not supposed to be meant to be taken seriously. But I digress. The complete Megaton Man Universe. Cannot recommend this enough. Pick this up from Fantagraphics as soon as you can. If it interests you, drop in the comments down below with your thoughts on Megaton Man or any other parodies of superheroes. I'd love to talk to you guys down there. Subscribe if you haven't already. I am going to do my 31 days of horror comics coming out in October, so you don't want to miss out on that. And everyone, keep talking comics.